Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I wanted to do another video and look at the possibility of some severe weather tomorrow. Right now it is Wednesday, just a little bit after 5:30 Central Time. I wanted to look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook as well as kind of the latest models. Give us an idea of possibly what to expect tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't look like it's going to be quite as big of a severe weather event as, say, last Thursday, and certainly there's this weird pattern that we're in that it seems like every Thursday is when we have severe weather here in the southern plains. So, not sure if there's really much to connect the dots on why it's necessarily Thursdays right now, but certainly that seems like what it's been over the last month. So, looks like that trend's going to continue here tomorrow. This is the Storm Prediction Center day 2 outlook. So this shows kind of what we're expecting for tomorrow. We do see that we have a level 2 out of 5 slight risk here in yellow over much of kind of west central Texas, northwest Texas, and then southern and kind of central Oklahoma, all the way up to about the Tulsa area. So definitely a pretty large risk area. Models aren't super bullish on this event, especially down along the dry line here in Texas. It looks like this stuff may be a little bit more conditional. It may fire kind of after dark overnight hours. And obviously that's a little bit harder if you're thinking about preparing for it and or if you're chasing it, like I'm kind of looking at models to decide whether or not to chase. It does look like there is an opportunity tomorrow, so I'll get a little bit more into that. A little bit of a tornado threat, a small 2% area, northwest Texas, kind of southern central Oklahoma here. Main threat tomorrow is going to be for hail here. We can see a 15% risk, including this kind of dashed, we call this a hatched area. This is the potential for areas within this region to get possibly 2-inch or larger hail. This technical probability is for 1 inch or larger, so enough hail to certainly give you some dents and create a little bit of damage. We could see that kind of late afternoon, early evening hours there. Tomorrow. So again, mainly a large hail threat, possibly outsized chance of a tornado. Let's take a look at some of the latest model runs, kind of look at the environment and kind of what's creating this severe weather possibility tomorrow. As always, a couple of the things that we like to look at here first is the moisture. Really not going to have any issue with moisture here tomorrow. This is looking at about 0Z, so that would be 7 p.m. Central Time here on Thursday. And we can see kind of the general setup. What we've got is we're going to have kind of this cold front here that's draped across kind of southern Oklahoma. We've also got a dry line that's going to be kind of draped across kind of west central Texas here. And then we've kind of got what we typically call the triple point right here, where kind of these different features meet together. And then we've got this moisture being pulled up northward towards either the triple point or a lot of times towards one of the boundaries, either the cold front or the dry line here. So that's definitely what we can see here just looking at moisture. Again, not any issue with moisture. We're going to have dew points tomorrow evening at, mid to upper 60s along the Red River here, and kind of Wichita Falls area, maybe a little bit west of there, and even across Dallas, southern Oklahoma, North Texas, central Texas, low to mid 60s dew points. Definitely no issue with moisture here. One of the limiting factors that I'm seeing for potential for more robust severe weather or an outbreak is looking at the low-level wind fields. This 850 millibar winds, this is what we kind of call the low-level jet. So that's sort of the surface, or really it's just above the surface, about a kilometer. And that's typically when you see some of these darker purple and pink colors here that are basically in the same area as that cold front or dry line that we talked about. That's when you can get some pretty significant severe weather, definitely an increased tornado threat. And as we can see from that previous dew points that we were looking at, let me kind of go back to here. I'm going to redraw. We've got cold front here, dry line here, and we've got the surface low here. Now when we compare that with where those 850 low-level jet winds are, they're pretty far off to the east here. And I think that's why we're going to see a little bit of a limited severe threat tomorrow until maybe the overnight areas when some of the cold front kind of pushes off to the east-southeast. because along sunset, kind of afternoon, evening, again, the pretty light winds here, not far above the surface. So that's likely going to be a limiting factor with an increased severe threat. Not to say that we won't get storms or severe weather here, but I think this is certainly a limiting factor for the overall event. So we've looked at moisture, we've looked at winds. I think that's going to be one of the kind of issues that were kind of holding things back from being a bigger event. A couple other things we always like to look at is where is the surface-based instability, or kind of that storm juice, for lack of a better word. We can see, again, a little bit of a bullseye here at the triple point where we're expecting some storms to fire. I think that's kind of a good indication, kind of along the cold front, along the dry line, definitely a bullseye here. Some increased instability values down here, although it looks like there's going to be a cap down here, which may hold storms off until possibly even after dark here across the hill country and the Edwards Plateau. But certainly up here does look like we can get some storms, pretty uncapped atmosphere. Other parameter that I do like to look at is the energy helicity index. This is kind of a combination parameter that takes into account that storm juice or instability with the wind shear in the atmosphere. And so what we can see is, again, nothing super exciting or anything to write home about, but we do see a couple of these elevated values kind of right around that triple point here, kind of southern, southwestern Oklahoma, northwest Texas. And so definitely think this is the target area where we could see some supercells, some larger hail, and maybe an outsized chance of everything comes together right for a tornado threat there before dark. And so we can kind of see that here with this parameter. If we take just a forecast sounding, this again gives us a little bit of an idea of what the atmosphere is going to look like. And I think what we can see here, again, what we typically look for, temperatures and dew points. We got a 74 degree temperature, dew point of 64, only a 10 degree spread there. That typically is going to mean that the cloud bases are closer to the ground. That can be better for severe weather, especially a tornado threat. The other thing that we always look at is kind of what the wind directions are. We can see that winds at the surface, very small, but they are out of the south here, and then a little bit more southwest above the surface, and then more of a southwest or even westerly component above the surface. So we do have some of that turning wind with height. We can see our storm slinky here. And then last thing that we always look at here is the hodograph. And I think what is pretty noticeable about the hodograph is that there's just not much of these low-level winds. The way that you read this hodograph is as you go out away from the center here, this is showing your basically wind speed in knots. And so anytime that these points, 0 kilometers is at the surface, 1 kilometer is 1 kilometer above the ground, 2 kilometers, and so forth, anytime that these points are pretty close to the center of this graphic, that means that the winds aren't that strong. Now we can see that higher up there's going to be 50, 60 knot wind speeds, and way up in the atmosphere near the jet stream we would expect that. But down by the surface there is a little bit of this low-level curvature, and that's what you typically need for more significant severe weather and especially a tornado threat. There's a little bit of that here, but again, pretty minimal at best, and so I think that's why tornado would probably be surprising tomorrow, and again, not the biggest severe weather threat overall. So hopefully that kind of provides a little bit of insight on kind of what to expect. I guess last thing we can look at is the simulated radar here. This shows kind of around sunset, if we back up an hour, about 6 o'clock here, we can see a couple storms along that triple point. We move forward in time, we can see there in southern southwest Oklahoma, it does model a pretty decent 1 or 2 supercells there. Could be some pretty big hail producers here. And then as we move forward kind of into the after dark overnight hours and we move forward, we can see 7Z here. This is, kind of middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning time frame. We can see these storms start to pop up along that other risk area across kind of central and kind of western Texas there. And then it tries to kind of march along, form more of a line, and move towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area, likely kind of a rush hour time period. This would be at 6 a.m. on Friday morning. So I think we could see some storms there, kind of early morning hours on Friday, but also a little bit of broken hints that things could fall apart. So we'll see. I don't think Dallas is going to see any type of significant severe weather like we saw last Thursday with that really impressive supercell and produced a tornado in Irving and some pretty large hail. out west of DFW and then across DFW as well. So hope this forecast breakdown was helpful. I do plan to probably take a drive up towards Wichita Falls tomorrow evening. Maybe get a nice supercell there around sunset. So probably will be out and about and streaming live here on YouTube. But otherwise, hopefully this was helpful, and everyone kind of pay attention to any updates or things that may change with the weather here moving into tomorrow. And then this system all moves off to the southeast on Friday. Could be a pretty significant severe weather event over Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, those types of places. So hope everyone has a good Wednesday, and I will see you back here again next time.